ad hoc. This changes over time. They break out into task forces, and then those task forces will have people that write curriculum for what your needs are, right? Okay? Then you've got, if you go down to the teaching instruction side of it, the instructional planning goes to the school curriculum council, which reports into the principal, and then you have the superintendent down through the principals. Okay? Citizens Curriculum Advisory Council should come from probably your community members, parents, maybe some other people in the community, business people and so on, right? They are advising both the superintendent and up through the school board. The school board is sort of at the top of this. Now, as I look at this, I see several things that I think could be considered as weaknesses or holes or things that are not on there that should be, or relationships that maybe should go in more than one direction, and so on. So I want you guys to talk about this for about 5 to 10 minutes. And forget about what I think, because I'm not really interested in what I think right now. We'll come back to that later, after I've got your ideas. I want you to just, do you understand what this is now? I've explained what it is. You understand what it is? Question?
Double arrows meaning both horizontal and, sorry,
the dashed arrows.
Do they stand
Okay.
for communication?
Yeah, this is all interaction, yeah? Relationships means who's reporting to who, who's talking to who. The direction of the arrow means that these people are primary passers and these guys are takers.
Right.
Right? This person, this group here, is giving sort of a direction. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? The dashed arrows indicate something that's not a hard and fast fixed rule. This one is authority implied. It's definitely there. That the school board is above the suit. They hire the superintendent, they employ. And the superintendent is above the principals. He gives direction, or she gives direction to the principals. Okay? Does that make sense? So these lines, yeah, are hard relationships. They're there. These are more informal. Does that make sense? Okay? They may happen, they may not. They're not direct. Are we okay with that? This is good because I think this gets us, if you think about this, it gets us away from a lot of the arguments we often have in education, which are sort of counterproductive. Let me give you an example of some of these arguments. You might say, what are you talking about? Here's one. Whole language versus phonics. Phonics is when you teach kids the sound groupings on words. You know, the PH goes together to make the sound flip like that, phonetic or something like that. Okay, the letter S can make the sound S, but when you put it with an H, it makes the sound sh, like trash, right? And so on. That's called phonics. When we talk about phonemes, groups of letters together that make sense. The approach of phonics is you drill kids in those skills so that they can learn the language technically. Whole language says you give children literature. Sometimes people say bathe them in literature. It doesn't mean you put the book, wash the books, not like that. But you surround the children with books. You give them books. You encourage them to read. Even when they're very young, they can look at a letter and maybe identify it. Okay? So you're getting the kids excited about books. Okay? Those are two approaches. Many years in education, we've gone back and forth. Whole language rocks. And, of course, phonics, the other word, okay? Which I won't say. All right? So, there you go. And then, 5 years later, look at all these illiterate kids. It's because we don't have any phonics. Phonics rocks. Whole language, the other word, which I won't say. It's insane. Wait a minute. Both approaches have their value. Both approaches have their merit. Process and product, another one. We have to learn about process, how to learn, what are the steps that are involved. We need to get to objectives. And there's people out there. Process is the way to go. Forget about the product. Or somebody else. The results are all I care about, man. I don't care how do you get there. You got to kill another kid to get the result. It's okay. It's nuts. Obviously, process and product are both important. All these arguments we have in education, to be honest with you, most of them are just, as Henry Ford once said about history, which I wouldn't agree with about history, but I would agree with it about those arguments, is they're bunk. He said, history is bunk. I don't agree with that. History is very valuable. But these arguments are mostly bunk, which means they're ridiculous. They don't make any sense. Okay? Here you've got, why am I saying that? Mastery curriculum and organic curriculum is another one of these arguments and there's no point in having the argument. Mastery curriculum says you take basic skills, things that kids, okay, phonics is an example. Math, there are a lot of basic skills in math. Multiplication, okay, division, subtraction, addition. And later, as you move up into grade levels, use of algebraic formulas. And then when you move on a little bit, you get into things like order of operations. You know, you must always multiply or divide before you add and subtract. And you must always do what's inside the brackets before you look at an exponent. And if you don't, you'll get the wrong answer every time. Those are basic skills, so you have to have mastery. You must learn those. You must sequence them. You learn this skill first. You must learn addition before multiplication. Why? Because multiplication is repeated addition. If you can't go 2 plus 2 equals 4, plus 2 equals 6, plus 2 equals 8, you're never going to understand 2 times 4 equals 8. Never. Right? So you must have these sequences. That's called mastery. Mastery curriculum. But then you also need to teach kids things like share. Try to be kind to other people. Love other people. Respect the views that other people have, even if they're different than your views. Try to understand that there's different religions in the world. And your religion is not a monopoly on truth, even though you may believe in what you believe in. You may feel very strongly, but you need to understand that it's not a monopoly on truth. That the Muslim brother down the road has as much of a claim to truth as the Catholic priest does. The Catholic priest who you go to listen to on Sunday, if you're a Catholic, has only as much of a claim to truth as the Buddhist monk does. Those are teachings that are valuable. But do you say, we're going to learn all that in 3rd grade and never study it again? No! Kids need to learn that over and over. They need to learn it in life situations. They need to learn it directly when they're younger. You have to teach it to a little kindergartner. And the kid can't probably understand it unless you teach it directly with actual examples. But then when they get older, when you talk about toleration, in a high school discussion, it's very different, isn't it? You can talk about religious toleration. You can even talk about gender toleration. You can talk about the understanding of transgender people, people who have 2 genders mixed in one, and so on. Those are things that you can do in high school in a different way than you're going to do it with a little kid. Some of those topics aren't even appropriate for little children, right? So that's organic, is that you're teaching it all the way through, you know? And, you know, if you look at some of the failures that are out there, real big failures, you know, maybe they stopped teaching it to them. You know, I really wish that a guy like Adolf Hitler could have been taught it in high school. You know, maybe he kind of forgot it in kinder, in grade 1 and grade 2. You know, so you keep teaching it. It doesn't stop, right? That's organic. It's throughout the whole process, right? And again, we have arguments. Let's teach drills, mastery curriculum. Forget the organic, right? Then you can create monsters. You can create people who, you know, guys who build nuclear bombs and don't mind blowing other people up with them. Those are people that have mastery curriculum. They're strong in mastery curriculum. They don't know how to get along with people, right? Or the opposite, somebody that's a wonderful guy and loves everybody, but he doesn't know how to go and buy some steak and get the right change. It's not going to work, right? So, you know, instead of either or, I like this distinction between mastery curriculum and organic, because you can look at it and say, what is it we should be doing for these skills? Sometimes you need to do more of a mastery curriculum, sometimes you need to do organic, and sometimes you need to do both, depending on what it is. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's sort of a valuable distinction. I want to make that point before we conclude it. Again, I've only just given you a few key ideas. Okay, but I hope it kind of makes sense and you can fit in just some of these ideas about curriculum and planning into your bigger scheme of things. A lot of you are sort of early in your teaching career, and this may even seem a little over your head, or may seem like stuff that you're not going to be that involved with. Don't worry too much about that. Just kind of keep these ideas in the back of your mind, and later as you come up against them over time, you'll be, oh yeah, I remember that, okay? So if it doesn't make sense, all of it tonight, even if only half or less, that's okay. Don't worry too much about it. Okay? Any questions on anything at all? I'm going to wrap it up at that point. Okay? If you have any questions, you can stick around and ask me. I'll stay for a while. I'm not going to stay too long tonight because I have a student that's already asked to see me when I have an appointment. So, but I will stay for a little while. Okay? Until whatever questions you have are done with. All right? But other than that, if you don't have any questions or you're cool with everything, are you guys going to get mad if I let you go early? Okay. So if you're done, you don't have any questions, you can go. If you got questions, you can stick around. Thank you.